Welcome to Restaurants with Eric and Adam. I'm Eric, and this guy over here is Adam. Welcome to the show. Yeah, you. Always, it's like I said, welcome to the show, and I think I say that with this little air of insecurity that 10 minutes till I send you the link, and I'm like, will he show up? Did we arrange this? Even though it's been every week for a minute now. Like, will Adam show? And that's probably like me wanting my dad's approval.
That should be the name of the show. Will Adam show?
Will Adam show?
And every week I do.
If I was like Will, that would work.
Most boring cliffhanger ever. Yeah, and literally cliffhanger. My middle name's Cliff, by the way, so I'm hanging around.
There's levels to this game.
Yes, there is.
And this episode, we're going to talk about rest. Can you imagine
rest?
Yeah, I feel like I just melted your mind with rest rounds talking about rest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I could use some rest, yeah. Which is interesting. Real. Yeah, I just got off a podcast with someone who is a neuroscience, who was a neuroscience. She's a neuroscience. No, she's a neuroscientist who studies workplace stress and stress in general, and the importance of incorporating rest into your life. And it was definitely so. Spoiler alert: it's important.
Well, there you go. You can catch us next time. And baya! Well, actually, the funny part is in probably like 5 to 10 episodes, you're going to realize I'm just tapping into your podcast somehow and sneak listening so I can adjust my script to fit what you just went through. So yeah. On brand, let's go. Rest is important, but it's often very unsexy in today's day and age. We've talked about that a lot. I've burned myself out a lot because of that. And I want to start with this quote that I heard from a friend. Fate leads the willing and the rest she drags. And what that means is fate. It's a concept, very big concept we're not going to get into, but it's this idea that if you don't make a choice, the universe, fate, God is going to make it for you. And oftentimes that choice is sit the fuck down. That's what you're not doing. And so you will get sick, you will get injured, you will get overwhelmed, depressed, anxiety. The fate, the universe, the emotional intelligence, whatever it is, your spirit is going to tell you, stop. You're doing this wrong, because we are in a grind culture. So I want to start with that. And I have this friend, who grind, and I need to take a rest. You hear this all the time, right? Like, I need to take a rest. I need to slow down. My body is beat up. My mind is gone. But they keep showing up on the mats. They keep showing up at the races, and they just beat themselves over and over. And all of a sudden, might take weeks, might take months. All of a sudden, they have a huge injury that takes them out for 6 months. All of a sudden, they quit. And it's so avoidable, but the thing that is necessary is to sit down and rest and listen to what we'll get into later is the micro signs that rest is needed. So I just want to pitch that to you. Fate leads the willing, the rest she drags. And I want to know, Adam, does that resonate with you?
Yes. And I'm struggling through this because I'm, I deal with it also. So I have a ton of things running through my brain. And even in this point right now, when there's a ton of things that are running through my brain, organizing thoughts, that is an element of burnout, like where it's just like too much going on in there. So it's like taking that moment to just kind of step back and think about it. But, from this, I've known a lot of people, especially coming from a sport like triathlon, where lots of people are extremophiles. They do the very same thing. They say, this is my 120th race in 5 years. No joke. I've heard that before. Yeah. And I'm just like, and do you expect that they're winning those races? No. They are finishing somewhere near the back, injured frequently, hobbling. They're the ones in the med tents because they're burning themselves out. And, our culture is built around this whole idea of go hard or go home. I mean, you look at the best-selling books out there, and there's no surprise. It's Goggins. It's the people that are showing these extreme things. Why? Because it's sexy. Those stories are sexy. I love the Goggins story, and I know I pick on Goggins a lot, and it may seem like I have something against him. I don't have anything against him. I have something against the message being consistently distributed that we all have to do that. And that is the definition of success, because it's not. It's about finding harmony in your life. And harmony in your life means that you find a good, people call it balance, but I think that balance takes energy. And I love that this philosophy that a friend of mine, Aaron Velke, shared with me. He said, I don't look for work-life balance. I look for harmony, which is beautiful, because that balance takes effort. It takes energy. Harmony comes naturally when you can embrace it, when you can let go of the things that you're trying to push against. So giving some of yourself to work, giving some of yourself to your personal life, whether it be family or friends or what have you, and giving yourself to rest. That's the tripod. Anything that's going to stand up on its own has to have 3 legs at least. And those are the 3 legs in your life that will produce the harmony: is work, the life, and the rest.
Yeah, that is my definition too, I think. And I say balance doesn't mean equal. It means both or all. And it's the idea of how do you dictate the energy? How do you steward that energy? And with Goggins, and I'll say Jocko as well, and The Rock. And I mean, there's no shortage of people that have made that look really appealing. And I think there is a very small minority of people who can do it. I have also met a small majority of extremophiles that can do it. And it's super impressive. Like, it's really, I'm inspired, right? Like, I look at the Miranda Carfrey. I think she inspired me, right?
Right.
I was never going to do what she did. I was never going to, Tim O'Donnell, I was never going to do what he did. Any of those guys. Pick, Gordon Ryan, who he's going through some stuff right now and might not roll again for ever, like in jiu-jitsu. And he was the best and still, is the best, but he is injured and he might lose that sport. And I'm not going to say why, but there's this idea that I'm not going to be any of those people. That's not why I'm in this for. And we have to recognize that a small fraction of the people are going to achieve that. Even on the Project Echelon cycling team, our pro cycling team, UCI Continental, only 1 or 2 people on this team of 10 to 12 is ever going to win, cross the finish line first. The rest of them are dedicated to circling around this guy and doing all of the work they need to put the one guy in a position to win. So you see that at every race, and they dedicate their whole life to this. And so there's a whole range of psychological neuroscience probably that goes into it. She probably, but the thing that we get confused is Jocko has a nice message where he says, good, you got injured. Good, you were training too hard. And that message to me is the favorite thing I've ever heard him say, because it takes all of this. It's 3 a.m. What are you doing? Have you gotten your first workout? It takes all of that and then brings in the kernel of reality that we all need to ingest. What he says about is inspiring, and maybe it'll make you work harder. Maybe you need a little kick in the ass. Goggins, they're going to give you that kick in the ass, but then you have to bring reality into it. And when he says, good, you were training too hard, why that needs to be amplified. Because that's when he gets really, really real. That's the universal truth. That's the balance. Otherwise, I think a lot of these guys I akin to functional alcoholics. Some people are really functional and can be really engaging and really successful on drugs, on alcohol. That's such a small minority, but they're still damaging their body. It's still not their highest good. It just appears to us like, hey, he seems to be able to handle his drink really well. He's doing drugs and he's fine. I should be able to do that too. He's smoking cigarettes and genetically he didn't get lung cancer. Like, that was just an anomaly, whatever. So I can smoke cigarettes. No, we can't look at the isolation as the standard, because that's not the case. We all need rest. There's just a few of us probably that need less rest, that they still need rest. Maybe it's 3 hours a night, for a couple of people in the world. That's not me.
No. Yeah. I need 9 hours and at least, and in an ideal world, I wouldn't set my alarm and I would just let it sleep. And that's true for some of us. I mean, if people are out there talking about a specific standard for how much sleep you should get, well, you should only get 6 hours. It's like, why?
Yeah.
If your body's tired and it's telling you to sleep, then you probably need to sleep. And if it's telling you that all the time and you're sleeping 12, 14 hours, well, there's probably something else going on.
Mm.
Maybe you need to look at your diet. Maybe you need to look at, your mental health. Are you depressed? Are you aligned on what your pursuits are? But if you are, generally productive and working towards something, then sleep getting the right amount of sleep and waking up rested is super important. And there's a lot of aspects that go into that. Rest does not mean, oh, I'm going to lay on the couch and ingest a whole bunch of TikTok. Because what happens there is now we're just trading one element of overstimulus, which is the exercise, the fitness part, with overstimulus in the brain. We're taking on these small incremental amounts of information that we're ingesting it at bite-sized chunks, and we're overwhelming our brain. Now we're just trading one stress for another.
Mm-hmm.
It does mean it means immersing yourself in a book or a story or meditation or breathing or or something personal. Like even last night, I mean, when we think about rest, um, I had the opportunity to go to see my Nuggies, my Denver Nuggies, the chicken Nuggies, play in the finals last night, and I ended up sleeping like 10 hours last night afterwards. Not because I was out drinking all night or anything like that, because I don't drink, but it was because it was just exhausting. I mean, even that is, you have to know where this exhaustion is coming from, or work to make sure that you're prioritizing rest. And you may be thinking, when you say that, it's oh, but I have to get up for work. I have to do all this work. It's okay, here, guy. If you're not rested and you're going to work or you're doing all of those things, you're doing it at 50%, 50%, or less. And so, but if you get fully rested, if you spend that extra hour or whatever it is sleeping, you're putting in more. You're able to give more. And it's important that that number not be 110%, because then you're going to burn out on the other side.
Absolutely. I think that leads into the next topic of conversation, and that is that the idea of micro injuries becoming macro injuries. And for me in jiu-jitsu, it's been a hyper focus case study in that the micro. I have not been injured. I have been taken off the mats for a couple of weeks though, because my grips are thrashed. I can't even grab things because the tendonitis in my elbow and shoulders and all that stuff is so flared up that it's just not going to happen.
You know what we need? You
What's
know what we need? We need a Rocky-esque grip training montage,
Yes.
where you're just you're grabbing a watermelon, just breaking it.
Starting off with an egg first, just to elevate
and I'm just screaming at you. You break that egg, Eric. You break it. Break the egg.
Nothing is over. Just need something to drink. But the reality is, you go to practice, you go to life, whatever it is, and you go too hard and you pay for it. Mm-hmm. That payment you need to be very cautious, because those payments can often accrue interest if you keep going back to training. And I, had my first tournament 2 weeks ago now, something like that. I went back to practice and did 2 days in a row. Mistake, because I couldn't do a pull-up. And that's what I usually use a metric. And I think that's really important we'll get into maybe talking about how you assess this. For mine, it's, can I hang? I grip on the pull-up bar and I just dangle, and I can feel pretty quick what's going on, because it's pretty much up here. My legs have been fine since starting. My abs, fine. It's all shoulder, elbow, wrist. That's the only areas that I really need to stretch out and work out. Otherwise, I'm not able to go. And today I did my first pull-up without pain. And when I release the bar after a pull-up, my joints go, poof, they flare up. If I know, and then I know I can't train. And so after taking, want to say a week off, I'm now ready to go back. But I was oh, I missed a whole week. Yeah. And I think the problem in that is feeling that I'm going to go push through these injuries, because if I stay off the mat, I'm going to be so far behind.
Yeah.
No, what were you going to learn in a week?
Right. It's so true. And actually, when I was at my karate lesson today, and we're learning not a defensive technique. We're learning two two fist two fist no two man fist set
Oh,
north side.
oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, we're getting
Sounds,
yeah.
sounds sketchy, my
This is
friend.
something you don't want to do more than once a day, but let me tell you that. No, but it's a technique where basically two people are fighting each other,
Mhm.
and so there's a certain set of moves in this. It's kind of kung fu, and and he said something pretty profound. He's like, yeah, you want to work on this just 3 times a day, because you don't want to do it once because that's just remembering it, but 3 times a day you work through it and you focus on each of the elements. Because if you do it 100 times a day, what's going to happen is you're going to get fatigued, you're going to get sloppy, and you're going to imprint sloppy results.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 times a day, resting, stretching out between those times is going to have it. And it's not so. This is similar to triathlon training, by the way, um, because 3 times doesn't feel like it's enough. It doesn't feel like it's enough to really like imprint something or make it work.
Sure.
So so you finish off like, I don't know if I'm going to have that by the end of the week, but sure enough, when you rest, yeah, key point there.
Mm-hmm.
When you rest, that's where the adaptations are occurred. If you sleep enough that night, your brain is putting together the connections to make that happen the next day. Whatever skill you're learning, you could be learning the banjo. I'm learning the banjo right now, and it's like, okay, 3 times a day with every song. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to remember that. Next day, I'm able to play it faster, okay, and tighter. Great. Same thing with triathlon. It was 80%. The person I learned from first, the thing that resonated most with me first, when I finally got it and got out of the funk that I was in of giving 110% for short bursts of time and then freaking burning out for months at a time and never
Mm-hmm.
being healthy or never being fit. The thing that I got was that Mark Allen, who was a professional triathlete, kept losing the Ironman World Championship because he burned out every single year. And then finally met a man named Phil Maffetone who said, slow the F down. And by F, I mean friend. Slow your friend down.
Yeah.
No. But, he basically said, slow down. And he slowed down. He took 2 minutes per mile off of his pace during training. He said, there's no way I'm going to win doing this. There's no way I'm going to win a world championship by training at 70% capacity. Sure enough, he was able to train consistently. Sure enough, with that training, what happened? And with my training, what happened was I was being given energy throughout the day. I was building energy. I was building capacity so that over time, my 80%, Mark Allen's 80% became everybody else's 100%.
Mm.
Then when he got to the Ironman World Championship, he won it. And he won it in world record time, and he went on to win the next 5 world championships after that. And that's anecdotal, and that's one of those unicorns there. But it's a unicorn that matters because many other people and many other triathletes adopt that same philosophy. But it's where the idea of rest comes in, because those adaptations are going to come into play there. 80% consistently beats 110%, 100% of the time.
Boom. Eat it. I like the 80% rule and I try to apply it. I don't always successfully do so. And I think none of us always are going to nail that
Right.
because emotion gets in there. I want to go hard. I can win, and so you give that little extra. And I say this all the time. Everything has a cost.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to pay the price. You got to know what the price you're going to pay is, and is it worth it? And that is something you learn in time, I think. And so we make mistakes, and I tell people when I coach them, they're like, "Oh, I messed up. I did it again. Whatever it is, this thing is they did that they don't want to do anymore."
Yeah.
Well, and I always tell them like, but you recognize you made the mistake. So now you have awareness, and now maybe the next 6 times you do this thing, you screw it up again. Okay. And you're pretty pissed at yourself because you feel that awareness and you want to make change. And in jiu-jitsu, I get beat, and I see myself get beat by people who are better than me. I know what they're doing. I have not been able to stop them from doing it, but I'm aware. And then the setups occur, and you see these things leading to this thing that you get beat by every time, this sequence of events that makes you pissed, that makes you lose your temper. You see it coming. Eventually you see it. And that's the only way that you can stop the punch. You can stop the blow, because you start to be able to see the setups to the thing happening. It's not the actual action. It's the, oh, he's putting his foot here, and that means he's getting ready to load up to do this. So I got to move here. And then you start to catch, it's a physical fight or it's an emotional response. Yeah. It's the ability, our ability to master emotions and master the physical body, the mind and the body, that leads us to writing the best life story possible. And so I don't like when people get really hard on themselves for screwing up. I get really excited when people see the screw up and they take ownership of the screw up. It's not, yeah, I knew it would happen because I went out with Steve again. Steve. No. Who doesn't have a Steve in their life? Am I right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Stop hanging out with Steve. I really am sorry if you have a best friend named Steve. I'm not advocating that you ditch Steve.
And if your name is Steve, screw you, Steve.
Yeah, screw you. I don't need you for Steve.
Except you, Steve.
Yeah.
But you're the only one.
There's an exception to every rule.
Yeah.
And some Steves Steve are inspirational. Right, yeah, that one. Yeah, you know who you are. I don't need to say your last name. But unicorns. You mentioned unicorns, and I want to touch on that too, because unicorns are beautiful, majestic, and inspiring.
Yes.
And I think there are unicorns in this world that are beautiful, majestic, and inspiring. But we have to appreciate that the inspiration that we received is not the course direction for our entire lives. It's a surge of energy. It's like going to a gas station and getting fueled up and then moving on down the road. It's not living at that gas station. Oh, it's the most pretty gasoline station I've ever been a part of. I'm going to live here forever, and this is my life now. No, it gave you a little fuel. Now you move on. Maybe you get it from a friend. Every interaction you're in, if you find those moments that give you energy, you've got something. Use that energy and move on and respect the source, but don't worship it.
Right. Yeah. Don't worship the source. Don't try to, use it as a model for success in some way, but yeah, that's, you said something there, which is, that failure point or that shaming point. If you shame yourself for pushing too hard or not being perfect, shame is not productive in that instance, but it's something to be, and the fact that you acknowledged it, that's something to be proud of, something to be strong for, because if you're giving 80% consistently, it actually gives you the capacity to give 110% occasionally. And so that's the beautiful thing. And those occasional 110% can actually benefit you too, because when you go hard, you want to go really hard. When you go easy, you want to go really easy. And that's how training works. But the third component there is the rest part. Are you getting the rest to make the adaptations? So if you're not getting the rest, if you're not actually stopping completely and giving 0%, you're not getting the adaptations. You're just not.
Yeah. And adaptations you mentioned earlier happen in rest in a couple ways. One, you're recovering your body. The other one is your mind is still active, even in rest. It's not like everything you said shuts off and you're just in this black abyss of void of thought and feeling. But empowered thought leads to active recovery. And so I find myself, and this is a point I want to say, is the reason that we don't want to stop and rest is because we enjoy whatever it is we're doing. Yeah. If we didn't enjoy it, we would have a real easy time, stubbing our toe, being like, well, I gotta take a month off. Just we're looking for a way out,
right?
A way to stop it. But when we enjoy it, we're looking for a way to stay in it, and that's great.
Yeah,
that's something we should recognize. Is I actually want to. I'm injured. I'm feeling, but I'm trying to convince myself that I'm not, because I love this thing so much. I enjoy it. I feel so connected. That's beautiful. But when you're away from it and you rest, you still have that. You still have connection to it, because now in jiu-jitsu, I get to replay sequences. I get to, take the step-by-step approach and say, okay, how did I do that? He was teaching us to grab here, post here, push here. and sweep, or, whatever it is, I get to replay that, or I get to take the live roll and I get to think about, how did I lose that? Why
Mhm.
couldn't I get out of it? And then when I go back into that situation after I've rested, I might get stuck in it. Like I was at one of the last practices, and we were doing a live drill, and so we in a position, and then it's whatever happens happens. And I got caught in someone's X guard, and X guard is my big Achilles heel. Okay, I have a lot of Achilles heels, but I'm saying right now, X guard I feel very unprepared for, and it took me a while of avoiding getting swept before I could remember what the hell I was actually supposed to do to try and free my leg, because essentially it's one of your leg is wrapped up by this guy's leg in his hand. So you're just stuck and
Mhm.
controlled. And then so you're supposed to push down on the right foot and then move it, and then you can kind of get your leg out. But it took me so long to think about that. But I only couldn't think of it because I wasn't in that situation. It hadn't happened to me in a while. So I stopped thinking about it. So
Yeah.
when we go into practice, part of recovery and rest is thinking about whatever happened that day, not the entirety of our experience, because there's a whole lot of information to download. And then all of a sudden we can get overwhelmed. So it's really being specific in recent instances, recent experiences, to let those into your mind that are fresh versus
Yeah.
trying to go through every single position that's possible. Because then all of a sudden you're up at 5 a.m. going X guard, De La Hiva, X guard, modify, and this, and all of a sudden you're just like, I can't
Yeah.
think of it all.
Yeah. People often wonder what it means when they say you get in your own head,
Mm,
right? Or when people say you get in your own head. And that's what I interpret. That's what I usually tell them, that means like something like you're talking about that X card, right? Is when you have this issue that you're trying to resolve, and you continuously think about it, and you're in your head, instead of coming up with a solution and practicing it in an organized fashion, right? And then the part of rest that you're talking about right there, the part of rest that's important, is letting it go and doing something else.
mm,
Because even if you're not actively thinking about it, you're passively thinking about it. You're
yeah.
passively putting the connections together. Because when you're actively thinking about something, your ability to make the connections is still limited. You know, you have to give it that time to work in the background. You have to. And it does. You have to trust that process. And this is why it's just so important to take a step back for a number of reasons, so that the adaptations can occur, right? I mean, you have to give yourself rest so that those adaptations occur.
Yeah.
You also have to do it to avoid the honeymoon phase, which is what I call when you get into the vicious cycle of any new thing. You fall in love with it, and anything you love you want to do all of the time at like maximum effort, right? If it's jujitsu, it's like, oh, I love that first session I went to. I'm going to do this every freaking day.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, and then you do it, and then you like eventually get burned out on it because
Mhm.
you're doing it every day. And here's the honeymoon phase. Such a fickle pitch, such a manipulative, you know, whatever.
It's like fate's cousin.
It is. It's totally Fate's cousin. Yeah, Fate's cousin is that honeymoon phase, because because a lot of amazing things are happening. You're loving it. You're enjoying the hell out of it, and it's producing amazing results at the first.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to from 0 to 1 because of actions, the euphoria that you feel is amazing. You want to get it every day. It's like a drug. But here's the trick that you have to do in those phases. You have to control or govern the output. You have to tell yourself, all right, I'm going to go do jujitsu twice a week, or
Yep.
I'm going to do this for 15 minutes a day, up until I can build it to this level. And that way you're going to stop doing it and you're going to miss it. So a couple of things are happening there. You're making the connections that you need to make to remember the skills and to make the adaptations and gradually improve. And you're also missing it so that you want desperately to come back and do it well. That's why it's so important to schedule that. That's why there's macro cycles in any different fitness pursuit.
Yeah. I think the thing you mentioned is really important, the letting go, and there's this message I got from, it was my last training session. That's what he taught us was, if you enter someone's guard, if you engage in this thing, whatever it is, and let's say you are planning on a knee slice, which requires you to do a certain entry into their guard, they're on their back.
Knee slice is my rap name, by the way.
I like it. You look like a knee slice.
Yo,
Slice got some nice pipes. So, and he rhymes real nice. And this analogy I'm about to give you,
my favorite show is Miami Vice.
Oh, that lyric was real tight. So the segue into that is the entry into a guard, like knee slice, you go on this side, but if they grab you in this other way and you're in headquarters position, you don't want to be in headquarters. Instead of struggling in that and he said like two bulls, colliding with each other, just pressing into one another, you have the option to step away again, to step out of headquarters and then play your game and try again. And then you can step out again and again until you get what you want. So I have a tendency to be like, well, I'm here now. Let's try real hard and just be miserable.
Right.
So what you're saying there, that hit me in a way, because it's this idea of disconnecting so you can rest, assess, and re-engage with the situation, whatever it is. And that's what we're talking about in a rest round. And this whole podcast is all about that idea of, how do you prepare yourself to re-engage in whatever arena you're in? And you also said something that hit me, where time off creates this longing for it. When I have these little times away, the micro injury, I don't get worse if I take time off, but I do get worse if I go to practice. And I do get sad and I do get mad at myself because I keep making things worse and I keep underperforming. And so I start to tell myself a story. This is why I almost quit at month 3, is because I went in my first week, 3 classes, and they're like, oh, some 3 classes, beat myself up. And then I went to 2 classes and I continued to beat myself up, going too hard, not knowing how to rest, not knowing how to pace myself, because I didn't know anything and I just wanted to smash people or whatever. And then I wanted to quit because I couldn't stay on the mat. And I just was like, my body, I'm not built for this, And it's like, if you show up to track and you just sprint all the time, you're going to lose all the time and feel like you don't belong. And so in taking time away now, I found that actually this week and a half or whatever I've been off because of training for the competition and recovering, because that took a lot out of me. I was really surprised how much that cost me. And now I know that price, but I feel like $1,000,000 right now. I feel so ready to get back, and I can't because of my tattoo. So I have another week off, but I'm going to go film and do some pictures. But when I go back, I'm going to be like young Eric.
Yeah.
And young Eric is dangerous.
Yes.
And I love meeting him. So I'm excited to go back.
That's the other beautiful part of the resting is really that taper piece. And you're experiencing that time of like after a I was going to say performance, but a competition where you where you put it all out there. And that's emotionally exhausting. That's physically exhausting. So you have a lot to recover from there. And so that recovery process is going to take some time, and you tend to feel it like the amount of pain you feel tends to like go up right after, and then it starts to come down. So you start to it's like a couple days later where you start to be, oh my God, that took a lot out of me. And then you start to finally go down. Then you start to feel freaking amazing because you've essentially rested enough that all of those adaptations, which come in arrears, they've been made. So you're going to go back, and you might take you'll take some time to like get back into the rhythm of it, maybe, where it'll take a few, but then you'll find that you're stronger when you get back into it. So every macro cycle, that was like an example of a macro cycle where you built up, you peaked, and then you tapered, you competed, and then you rested after. Now those adaptations are coming. You're going to start that process of baseline again, and you're going to keep building up, and within a few weeks, you're going to be stronger than ever.
Yes, I can't wait. But
Yes.
there's a lot of funny stories that you tell yourself when you're in that rest. And that's why I think a lot of us also avoid it. There's a lot of reasons we avoid it. And I think one of them we talked about was, I love this. I don't want to be away from it.
Yes.
Also, I don't want to. The story in my head is that if I can't go every week like everybody else, somehow I'm not meant for this. So I have to just push through it, or people are going to start saying I'm the always injured guy, or I'm weak, or like, oh boy, he's not going to last. And no one's thinking it, or at least they're not making it to your face, right? Like it's just a story you believe, you
Right.
mind read.
Yeah.
The other thing that comes up in me that has been shocking is I stay away from something, and I don't know how long this takes to hit me, but it always does. Whether it's film, whether it was triathlon, whether it's jujitsu, something I love. If I'm away from it for 2, 3 weeks, I start to tell myself that I don't like it,
Yeah.
and that I'm happier without it, and that becomes dangerous. And what I want to say about that is, you feel that when you're, when your body is able and you have the chance, go back and see,
Mhm.
because that goes away as soon as I get on the mats. But
So
right now, I
is that just a validation thing, like for like the idea of like, you're gone from it for a few weeks and you're just trying to convince yourself that you don't need it? What does that
I think
look
it's a
like?
justification. I think it's
Yeah.
also I think it's more protective,
Mm.
because growth is scary, vulnerability is scary. I am certainly not a master of any one of these things,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things that wrap up into it. For film, it's a whole different set of narrative that I get, because it's time consuming, it's financially draining, it's hard to justify to family because we're talking 12-hour shoot days
Yeah.
versus me going to class for jujitsu. But I think there's also a level of manipulation that I do to myself because there's pain involved and damage. Jiu-jitsu damages your body. Like
Mm.
it's not this holistic thing that's going to make me just be able to do backflips at age 90 or something. Like, it's not regenerative. It's damaging. Like, you're paying a
Yeah.
price,
Right.
and so there's a level of fear that comes into that it's safer if you stay home. That's real. That's my old brain trying to keep me safe.
Mm.
So it's like, hey, this isn't so bad, huh? We got no pain. We
Yeah.
got our nights to ourselves. We don't have to worry about food. We don't have to worry about how we're exercising and strengthening. We don't have to worry about injury.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't so bad, huh? And I'm like, no, it's not so bad. I'm actually pretty happy until I'm not. That's what
Yeah.
I learned, is then I get really sad because I'm away from it and I lied to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, because now we're taking it to the opposite end of rest, which is, when is it too much?
Yeah.
Because if it, yeah, there's those periods after you've given a good effort where you're just like, this is awesome. Like I'm happy here. I'm like eating peanut M&Ms off my belly and it's rad. I love it. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. But the problem is that you're feeling good right now doing that, like being sedentary. And there's a chance that you're reinforcing that because it feels good. You're giving yourself
Yeah.
something to chase later. It's like, oh yeah, remember that time I felt good sitting on the couch watching Netflix? Again, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But there is something wrong with that if you're doing it for 12 hours a day, eating peanut M&Ms constantly off your belly
Mm-hmm.
while they sweat their vibrant colors all over your t-shirt. So
Is that's like a really strange Pride Month thing? Just melting
yes.
M&Ms all over your belly. I'm supporting.
It's
It's
an
like,
ally
no,
thing.
you're
Yeah, I'm an
really,
ally.
yeah. That's a really ugly way to support. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But
M&M
no,
belly.
yeah, I am an ally, but I'm also just disgusting.
Yeah. I don't know. It's very confusing.
Yeah,
No, that's
it's I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you just have to have that balance. You have to have a comeback plan. Meaning
mhm.
if you're away from it for a while, what's the next thing that's going to keep me healthy? It comes to a harmony thing. Because eventually you will feel like like garbage if you aren't getting yourself back out there and doing stuff. Because too much of anything is again too much.
Yeah. And it's personal too. You have a reason. You and me could go to the same class and have completely different reasons why we avoid or don't avoid going to class.
Right.
I particularly know I'm sensitive. I have that strength in me is sensitivity, and so I have a lot of different stories I tell myself compared to someone who is super masculine in
Mm-hmm.
the Goggins, Jocko Willenick sense. Both of those men, by the way, in conversation with outside of their book, if you were to sit down and have a drink with these guys, they would show you a part of themselves that you would be surprised by. I almost guarantee it. They have that sensitivity. They have that compassion. It's just that's not what they're giving and serving to the world, because in a certain degree, they're a brand and they
Yes.
have to be loyal to their brand. But I'm versed enough now to know that what I see on social media isn't the entirety of this person's persona. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
fraction of the persona. It's not the person. It is a persona. What am I saying? You know, and so
Right.
I have to recognize that too. That their struggles are going to be different than mine, and that's okay. Like, we're not here to compare ourselves. We're trying to figure out what are the signs that show you that you're resting too much, or you're resting too little, and what is the story?
Mm-hmm.
Why? What is it? For one guy, I'm have a friend who keeps beating himself up, and I'm I want to talk about what happens if you don't you
Yeah.
know go, like, what's the story? And we're all telling ourselves a story. You don't just do it for nothing.
Right.
There's a reason. Now, what is your reason that you're not going to stop, even though you're about to crash into a wall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Everything is about intentionality. What is the intention behind anything that you do,
Mhm.
whether it be, going to jujitsu for that night, whether it be taking the rest, whether it be putting a burrito in your mouth, which the answer is because that's awesome.
It's delicious. Yeah.
There's nothing, that's like the one exception to the rule of too much of anything is a bad thing. There's
Yeah.
never too many burritos.
Yeah. Too many toes. Yes. Not too many burritos.
Right. Yeah. True. True. Yeah. There can be too many burritos, like cold toes. Yes. But not burritos.
Some like it hot.
Burritos. Yes.
Burrow toes. What is your reason, Adam? What is your story that you told yourself when you were thinking about stopping triathlon for a time?
So the first story I told myself, um, and it really depends on the day, is the
Mm-hmm.
day after, say, Ironman Arizona, which was the last Ironman that I did. It was my number 10. A couple stories that I told myself, and I told my story this beforehand, even, which is why I probably didn't produce the results that I wanted to, is that, yes, after this one, I'm going to be done for a while. Um, and, uh, and I didn't have a lot of like, well, what's next? I just had a lot of like, well, I'm working and I have a lot of big work stuff going on. So I don't think that that was a healthy transition, because again, when I'm looking at that tripod of work, you know, personal and fitness, what I was saying there was like, well, I'm going to turn this 3-leg thing into 2 legs, and I'm not going to have a strategy for fitness that is consistent with my philosophy, but I'm just going to turn all of that time into work time. And so, but the story I told myself was, well, I need a break from it. I wasn't wrong about triathlon. I didn't have an alternative. Um, and so, yeah, for a couple of years there, I just wasn't really doing a lot of anything. But I did sign up for a couple races, so I did that. Um, but I think the story I told myself when I officially just kind of stopped, which was after last year, was I am not stopping. I'm just, this is just something that I recognize that when I am in it because of intentionality, I'm not enjoying as much because it takes a lot of, my time, and I've already feel like I've mastered it to the degree that I want to master it. And so I recognize something that's important to me in life, which is mastery. I like to master things. That's what fills me up, because I think we're on this we're on this earth for a certain period of time. For me, I want to learn, efficiently as much as I can while I'm here. What that means is mastering the things to the degree that I can. So the next thing is martial arts. I want to master karate or kung fu. I don't know what the next thing is yet, but right now I'm not even close to having mastered karate, which I would consider black belt. And so those are the stories I tell myself now. I have an intention behind all of it, and I'm able to harmonize my life in some way, not perfectly, but in some way that I'm incorporating the physical nature, the work nature, and the rest. The rest not being like the remainder, but the actual physical like recovery.
Right. Yeah. We got to be really careful with our words here, don't we?
Yes. So how about you? What story are you telling yourself now, Mr.
Well,
Beach?
I'm clarifying a story, honestly. I have a series of stories. Some of them are hype up stories. I think you would agree with the affirmations, the personal. Yes. I am this. We have a story that we tell ourselves. One of mine is, I'm never going to allow another person to make me feel weak again, but I will be weak because I choose to be. And that weakness is actually rest. It's vulnerability. It's processing emotion, totally separate from being physically overpowered and made to just shut up. Yeah. Know my place. Like, I'm not that guy anymore. Right. So that's a story that kind of overarches a lot of what I'm doing. There's stories about leaving triathlon for me. I felt I was telling myself I failed. I am letting people down. People expect, and that this is low grade selfish, low grade egotistical, because I didn't read it this way, but I had 600 followers on Instagram or something, and I was getting 100 likes on my triathlon posts,
Braggadocious.
So, I mean, it is pretty serious. So I had these people, they had expectations of me, and if I was to deviate from that, and then I did, and then I went down to like 3 likes, I felt so miserable. I mean, when you break it down, 100 people out of the billions around the world liked a picture. And somehow in my mind, I said, well, this is who I am now.
Yeah.
And if I deviate, I will lose all of this support. 100 likes. Who cares? Now I get, 4,000 or something, 20,000 views, or, I don't give a shit anymore, because it's not about that. So I'm just sharing because I want to share what's going on with me, because it's healthy for me. So the story I'm telling myself is, I'm not doing this for anybody. I'm doing this for myself. And as long as it's good for me, I'm going to keep doing that thing. As long as I feel filled up, like you said, I'm going to keep doing those things. And people can like it. They can not like it. They can think I'm in it for my ego or I need validation. That's on them. It's none of my business. I'm doing it and I know why I'm doing it. So my story is, I'm empowering myself in ways that I feel empowered. And as long as that's true, guess who's going to still sit in front of the camera? Me. Yeah.
Right.
I'm also realizing that some stories I tell myself are, about injury. Right now, I'm feeling recovered, but after the tournament, my jaw was out of place. It felt like my tooth was hitting in a way that it's never hit before. So I don't know if that, like, my jaw was out of whack, swelling, so it was opening funny, but it's not really. Let me check.
Now you're super aware of it, aren't you? You're just super aware of it.
I feel it. It's like this one right here. I'm like, why is that hitting? But it's because it's like crooked. And so I said, okay, don't quit, but maybe don't compete for a little while. Figure this out. And so there's a story of caution that I'm telling myself, like, go cautiously, because I've said this is longevity. My story in jiu-jitsu is longevity, not becoming a world champion in the fastest amount of time possible. And so I'm staying connected to that and not running away from certain adversity when it hits, because there is a solution and I'm not truly in danger. If I got concussed twice at the tournament, then I would have a different conversation and be like, damn it, like, I'm going to lose this thing. Yeah. Because my brain injury from the past makes me a lot more susceptible to bigger problems from simply getting, knocked out or whatever. So there's a bigger risk, and I have family, I'm not just a single guy who is just taking risks, and I'm accountable to other people. So that's kind of the story I'm telling myself now is, am I really empowering myself at a tournament? Like, can I say yes to that? I did. Oh man, I empowered myself. That was beautiful. Should I do it every month, every 2 months, every 3 months? No, probably not.
Right.
Should I do it 2-3 times a year? That'd be cool. I think that's doable. Should I wait until I turn 40 instead of 39? Sure. That's a good marker. Let me get to the next executive division instead of the masters. Maybe I'll do a little bit more.
I'm so glad they call it the executive division in jiu-jitsu because they call it the senior division in karate. And I'm like, okay, I won my division in the senior division, not the executive division.
That sounds so much. Well,
I know.
What can I say?
Yeah, I beat up a 70-year-old. Thanks. Yeah.
That's awesome. We don't talk about details, okay?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's depending on the organization. So Naga, it's executive. I think Grappling Industries is Masters 1, Masters 2, Masters 3. It's Masters, and then it keeps going up. And so I'd be a Masters 2, I think, at Naga. And I'm not sure. I think some of them have senior, and I won't go to those competitions. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah,
you gotta look at the organization, see what they're going to call you, so you don't, and decide if that offends you and hurts your feelings.
Yeah, right. No, I think that's important though. Like that, yeah. I mean, you look at it 3 times a year, something like that. If you look at it from the perspective of you're creating a macro cycle, you're giving yourself the opportunity to build, and you're giving yourself the opportunity to rest. And between those big bursts of effort, which can be called competition, they can be called racing, they can be called just accomplishment. But you're going to need the rest after that. You're going to need the time for reflection. But that reflection comes to an end at some point. And just be intentional about what that looks like.
Yeah, that's the rest. I will button it up with this. That rest time is where you assess if the price was worth it.
Yep.
You're going to give yourself days, like you said, the what was it on Saturday? Sunday, I was like, I could go to class tomorrow. I feel great. Monday, I was like, oh, okay, a little bit. Then Tuesday and Wednesday, I was like, got it. Yep, there it is.
Right.
I thought I was like a hero, and I was like, well, I guess I'm built for this sport to just do it every week. And then it just washed over me, and I have no idea because it was weightlifting the 48 hours. That was when it hit. But jiu-jitsu tournament for me was like day 3. And it was like punched me right in the mouth. I was like, damn, this is super weird. So rest sometimes after something new, you have to give yourself time. Yes.
Sorry, I had to adjust my video because it was getting all blurry. So I was like, "Hey, find it."
It's like, are you trying to hypnotize me?
Sell me this pen, Eric. Sorry, I just noticed my screen was blurry, and I'm like, all right.
I knew that.
Yeah,
but I wanted to join you.
Yeah, just join me.
Oh, my camera's too smart.
Yeah, it's like, yours is really smart. Mine's not.
Mine's like, I know that's a pen, Eric.
Watch if I put the pen here. It makes it. Oh, take it away.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today, for this week. And thanks for this rousing conversation about rest. I know it's a very exciting topic and is a very surprising one to hear on a show like Rest Rounds. But there you have it, folks.
Yeah. Thanks for a roundtable on rest rounds.
Oh, some King Arthur stuff right there. All right, so until next time, journey well, my friends, and as always, bye.